Hey all, Jason Levon, priest at St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Welcome to another edition of Pause and Pray. As I look out at how bitterly divided our world and society seems to be at present, I think about two prophetic witnesses in my own life. One is a friend of mine who lives in New York. And one of her preferred ways of praying is to grab a cup of coffee and to spend some time people watching in a busy park or square. And she talks about how she finds herself wondering what stories people have behind their lives, or just getting lost in awe and wonder at the beauty of humanity, the richness of our diversity, culturally, ethnically, religiously, all the different ways of life. And all of that is magnified in a city like New York. It's prayer for her to sit in a square with a cup of coffee and glory in the beauty of God's creation. Or I think of the Anglican priest Tish Harrison Warren, who wrote a book called Liturgy of the Ordinary: Sacred Practices in the Everyday Life. And it's a book we're about to study at St. Luke's, so it's why it's fresh in my mind. And in the book, Tish, she writes about a colleague of hers who, when he's asked to go bless a new house, takes those living in the house into the bathroom and blesses the bathroom mirror with oil. And as he's blessing the mirror, he prays that the people living there, when they look into that mirror first thing in the morning, without makeup on, without being put together for the day, that they realize that what's looking back at them is the image and likeness of God. That they've already been claimed by the gift of grace outside of anything they could have done. And then that they're invited to live out their day rooted in that recognition that they've already been claimed by grace, just as they are, no makeup on, lives not put together yet. Tish then goes on to talk about the gift that is, to think that every human being is more beautiful than in that sense, than the most ornate cathedrals in the world, because we all carry within us the image and likeness of God. Two prophetic witnesses in a time as divided as ours seems to be today, because they remind us of what connects us, namely that all of us, as Tish writes, do share the commonality that each and every one of us bears the image and likeness of God. Even people who think and live very differently than I live. And also gifts like my friend in New York, who recognize that God's already been at work building bridges between each other, in our interconnectedness and our common humanity that we all share and getting lost in awe and wonder in the presence of. In today's daily office, we're invited to reflect on the 4th chapter of the letter to the Ephesians, which reflects on that same gift and mystery, that God has already built bridges between each and every one of our lives. In the language of Ephesians, it talks about us having membership in one another. That's the language Ephesians uses. And it's that membership, that bridge that's already been built between each other that should compel us to live our lives with a love and even with speech that always serves to build one another up. Or as the text says, to become instruments of grace for those who need it, because we know first and foremost that we need it and couldn't live without that gift ourselves. All of that is a simple but also profound invitation to pause and pray about a mystery we all need to dive deeper into, the mystery of God's ability to build bridges between our lives. Maybe we pause and pray about that today by spending some time looking in the mirror and daring to see that what's looking back at us is the image and likeness of God, just as we are. Or maybe it's spending some time with a coffee and sitting in a park at an appropriate social distance, of course, and spending some time people watching, getting lost in awe and wonder like my friend in New York, about the stories we all carry, stories that are all sacred, or about the beauty in our diversity and the richness in the many ways of life that humanity reflects. And in the end, to get lost in a little bit of awe and wonder at just how much we are members of one another, and just how many bridges God has already built between us. God's Easter peace and blessings to you all.